You know, all over the world, right? From the jungles of Guatemala to the Egyptian deserts, you see these incredible skeletons of lost civilizations. And these ruins, they're like these silent monuments to all the empires that have come and gone over thousands of years. They're powerful for sure. They tell a story of just holding on. But here's the thing, they only tell the end of the story.
And that's the real question, isn't it? What were these places actually like before they were ruins? I mean, before all the decay, before the destruction, these were buzzing, living places. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to peel back the layers of time and try to see what some of the world's most famous sites looked like in their prime.
Okay, first up, we're heading to ancient Greece to look at a true icon, the Parthenon. Now, its story is really interesting because it's not about one big disaster. It's a long, slow burn, a transformation from the sacred temple into a ruin that was picked apart piece by piece, almost entirely by people.
So when you think of the Parthenon, you probably picture what we see today, right? This majestic, but kind of weathered, marble skeleton standing all stark and white against the sky in Athens. It feels so ancient, so permanent, almost like it was meant to be a ruin. But yeah, that's not even close to the real story.
Okay, the original building, it's just staggering to think about. First off, forget that stark white marble you have in your head. Imagine this enormous temple, and every single one of its intricate carvings and friezes is just bursting with bright, vivid paint. And then you go inside. The centerpiece was a 39-foot-tall statue of the goddess Athena. And get this, it was made of pure gold and ivory. It must have been absolutely mind-blowing to see.
So what happened? How did it get from that shining masterpiece to the ruin we see today? Well, it was a long and frankly brutal process. It's a perfect example of how changing cultures can just tear art apart. So, after ancient Greece fell, it was turned into a Christian church, and a lot of those so-called pagan carvings were just destroyed. Then, later, it became a mosque under the Ottoman Empire. But the real death blow came in 1687. The Ottomans were using it to store gunpowder. You can probably see where this is going. An attacking army hit it, and a massive explosion just ripped the building apart. And if that wasn't enough, the final insult came in the 1800s, when a bunch of its remaining sculptures were just packed up and taken to London.
All right, so from the slow, human-caused decay of the Parthenon, we're going to jump to a totally different kind of story. This is a place that didn't crumble over centuries. Nope. It was flash-frozen in a single, terrifying moment by the raw power of nature. Let's talk about Pompeii.
And here's the incredible irony of Pompeii. The very same disaster that wiped out every single person there is also the reason we know so much about it. That thick blanket of volcanic ash acted like a perfect time capsule, preserving everything, buildings, streets, art, protecting it all from centuries of decay.
You know, before the eruption, Pompeii wasn't some sleepy little town. This was a buzzing Roman city with about 12,000 people. It had the whole shebang, a huge amphitheater, a busy port, a sophisticated water system, tons of temples. They even had street food stalls, which, hey, some things never change, right? It was a totally thriving, vibrant community right up until the very end.
And then, in the year 79 AD, it all just stopped. Mount Vesuvius blew its top, burying the entire city and everyone in it. There was no slow decay here, no one taking it over. It was just one single terrifying event that froze time, leaving this incredible snapshot of Roman life for us to find, almost 2,000 years later.
Okay, for our last stop, we're off to Egypt because it's time to bust one of the biggest myths out there. We all have that image of the Great Pyramid of Giza in our heads, right? Well, that rough, sand-colored pyramid you're picturing, that's just the skeleton. The original was something else entirely, a structure so bright you could have seen it from miles away.
Yeah, so the pyramid we see today is just the rough core, but when it was first built about 4,500 years ago, it was covered in a casing of smooth, polished white limestone. It would have gleamed in the desert sun like a beacon. And the very top, the capstone, it was probably covered in gold. It wasn't this jagged brown thing, it was a smooth, brilliant white jewel. So, where did it all go? Well, just like the Parthenon, people took it. In the 14th century, an earthquake loosened up those casing stones, and they were basically harvested, carted off to build mosques and forts in nearby Cairo.
Knowing what it used to look like just makes the next question even more insane. How in the world did they build this massive, gleaming thing with the tools they had back then?
Well, it was just this incredible mix of pure genius and back-breaking work. First,
Workers would crack these giant stone blocks out of quarries using a really clever trick. They'd hammer in wooden wedges, soak them with water, and as the wood expanded, it would split the rock. Then, they'd float these massive blocks across the Nile and drag them on sleds to the construction site. From there, they used a whole complex system of ramps to haul the blocks up layer by layer, before adding that final brilliant white limestone shell and polishing it to a mirror shine. Just wow.
Okay, so we've seen the Parthenon, picked apart by people, Pompeii, frozen by nature, and the Great Pyramid, stripped of its shining skin. What does it all mean? What do these stories, these transformations from splendor to ruin, actually teach us?
Well, I think they show us that human ambition is a real double-edged sword. On one side, you have our incredible ingenuity. Look at what we can build. But on the other side, you see our destructive side. The same species that can build a shining pyramid is the one that will tear it down for building materials. It's wild. These places aren't just ruins of stone. They're ruins of ideas. They show how one culture's sacred temple becomes another's ammo dump. And then, of course, you have Pompeii, the ultimate reality check, reminding us that no matter how clever we get, we're always just a tiny part of a much bigger and much more powerful natural world.
And that kind of leaves you with one last big question, doesn't it? Thousands of years from now, if our own civilization fell and our cities were nothing but ruins, what story would they tell about us? What would future archaeologists dig up and think? It's a wild thing to think about. Thanks for joining me.